Good afternoon. My name is Ben Hunkler, and I'm an organizer with Concerned Ohio River Residents, or CORE, a citizens advocacy group working to replace the Ohio River Valley's petrochemical buildout with sustainable development. It's my pleasure to introduce Making the Invisible Visible, a community science collaboration for environmental monitoring in the Ohio River Valley, and a product of CORE's partnership with the American Geophysical Union's Thriving Earth Exchange. Today's presentation comes from a true team effort, and our collaborators are looking forward to sharing the results of our work, as well as the best practices we've developed. Please tune into the live session on December 11th at 10 a.m. Eastern for our live panel, where many members of our team will be available to answer questions and offer insights as part of the Science and Society session. Belmont County, nestled on the western side of the Ohio River Valley, was where I spent a large and memorable part of my childhood. It's where my dad grew up and where many of my family members live and work today. It's also the most heavily fracked county in Ohio and one of the most heavily industrialized areas in the United States. Pollution from more than 600 hydraulic fracturing operations, combined with injection wells and waste disposal from surrounding communities, threaten our region's air and water quality and endanger the health and safety of local residents. Currently, CORE's efforts are primarily focused on halting the construction of the PTT Global Chemical ethane cracker plant, proposed for construction in Dilly's Bottom, Ohio. If built, this processing facility would convert ethane from fracked gas into ethylene, a component of single-use plastics manufacturing. This process could release dozens or even hundreds of tons of a slew of airborne pollutants, including particulate matter, volatile organic compounds, and carbon monoxide.
No Cancer Alley in Ohio River Valley! No Cancer Alley in Ohio River Valley!
We at CORE are worried about the toll these emissions could take on the health of local residents. There's a strong correlation between proximity to petrochemical activity and certain adverse health effects. The Southwestern Pennsylvania Environmental Health Project surveyed 88 residents who live less than 1 kilometer from a compressor station, shale gas well, or other petrochemical-related facility. More than a quarter of those surveyed reported throat irritation, sinus problems, headaches, coughing, shortness of breath, sleep loss, and nausea. And 1 in 10 reported more serious and otherwise inexplicable symptoms, such as heart palpitations, skin lesions, nosebleeds, and joint aches. Many residents directly attribute these symptoms to nearby well pads or compressor stations. Despite the dangers of fracking, extractive industries are so entrenched in our communities that it's often hard to visualize a different path. Oil and gas plays an outsized role in the regional economy, and many folks argue that opposing the construction of the PTTG ethane cracker and other local petrochemical infrastructure projects is opposing jobs and the long-term prosperity of our region. Pivotal to CORE's mission is explaining why that assumption isn't necessarily true. We're working to remind our neighbors that clean, safe, and viable alternatives to petrochemical development exist, and we're sourcing ideas from local residents about how to create a more diversified regional economy through development in sustainable agriculture, renewable energy infrastructure, and ecotourism.
In the fall of 2019, the Concerned Ohio River Residents applied to work with the AGU Thriving Earth Exchange, which is a network connecting grassroots activists with scientists all across the country. To be honest, I'd never heard about any of this. I would maybe have gone years without hearing about this or ever actually knowing what was happening in Ohio was something I could help. But luckily, around the fall meeting last year, I was connected to the AGU Thriving Earth Exchange, an incredible network which supports communities and scientists in coming together for environmental justice. My name is Garima Raheja. I'm an atmospheric scientist at Columbia University, and I applied because I wanted to make my knowledge useful beyond academic circles. When I was matched with CORE, in the face of governments, regulators, and industries that are painfully inaccessible to the citizens who have to live with this reality every single day, we knew we had to create a new reality, a partnership that was focused around care, being accessible, open, and inviting to everyone, knowing that movements are built on trust, commitment, and shared responsibility. We worked together to do this in a few different ways. The leadership of CORE is distributed, which means a few people are working on setting up sensors, a few people are working with external scientists, a few are working with doctors and health professionals, and more. This allows people to step in and out as needed, so the burden is never on any one person and people can tap out when something in their personal life demands their attention. This is really important in a movement that's responding to crisis, remembering that even the leaders who are dealing with this crisis on a community scale are still dealing with crisis on a personal scale every day. We all have to take an exam or move apartments or take someone to the hospital at some point, and those things have to come first. This also helps make CORE a sustained effort grounded in people power, instead of revolving just around one personality holding up the entire force of the work. We have a standing meeting time to share updates and brainstorm together, and we are all committed to showing up to this meeting regularly. When we can't show up, we send email updates to just inform everybody about what's going on. Having a standing Zoom meeting has been really important in making this a regular priority, and also using Zoom has helped us stay connected even when we're all in different parts of the country. We often invite collaborators or other partners to join our meetings, but even when there isn't a lot going on or many updates to share, we easily fill up the hour just chatting. I think these regular face-to-face interactions have really helped me get to know the leaders of Belmont County as coworkers, but also as trusted friends. And I hope over time that they have come to trust me too. Over the past year of partnership, we've been able to accomplish a lot together. In November of 2020, we hosted 2 educational webinars attended live by over 80 members of the Belmont County community and viewed later by many more. Let's hear a few quick snippets from this webinar now.
We want you to know that you're not alone and that we're working on your behalf to hold accountable the regulatory agencies.
We've been working on this project for quite a while, and we're so very glad to share with you. There is no doubt that in Ohio, there is a lack of monitoring for actual air pollution, especially during big episodic releases.
Let's take a look at the emissions coming from this compressor station in Powhatan Point.
My name is Erica Jackson. I'm the manager of community outreach and support with Frac Tracker.
So to get this information, we went to the Ohio EPA's website and we searched for all of the permits.
I'm the medical outreach coordinator with the Environmental Health Project. It's a public health nonprofit that focuses on the health impacts of shale gas development.
When you're thinking of a well, it's kind of like an iceberg. What you see above ground is kind of just the tip. There is a lot going on underground. So all of those black lines are the horizontal lateral.
It is interesting that benzene from any other industry must be labeled as hazardous for disposal, but benzene from the fracking industry is magically labeled as non-hazardous.
And many of the substances used have not been tested for human toxicity or for low-level exposure impacts.
A recent report by Earthworks outlined in detail how deficient Ohio is in its regulations and responsiveness to citizen concerns.
So the monitors that are currently in the region that are hosted by the EPA are shown in these yellow dots here.
We had no idea of the magnitude of the release until years later when the satellite data showed that the release was about 60,000 tons. We heard about Aliso Canyon every day, but we never heard about Powhatan Point, which was bigger.
Carbon monoxide is a colorless, odorless gas. It's what is monitored by your smoke alarms. High exposure of this gas can kill you, and sometimes people who are sleeping can die before they even have symptoms.
But when I talked to the US EPA, because I appealed to them as well, and about our many concerns, what they did is send me this form and told me to document. So if that's what we get from the US EPA.
This table represents epidemiological studies that have found statistically significant associations between exposure to shale gas development and adverse health outcomes.
And so one of those is in Ohio, and the other 2 are in West Virginia. And each of those actually collects different types of data. And so a lot of times models might have to assume averages or even out a lot of spikes in weather data or in emissions data. And so that leaves us with a gap.
Citizen-owned monitoring networks are a strong support system for translating these on-the-ground experiences into the data language that can contribute to conversations about enforcement. CORE and FWAP members started their citizen monitoring networks with an air quality monitor called Purple Air.
As Anna just pointed out, we have also coupled those with the VOC monitors, and which also have a PM 2.5 capacity to them.
In the EPA's own words, while these sensors don't meet the rigorous standards required for regulatory monitors, they can help you get a picture of air quality nearest to you.
We place these monitors strategically based upon topography, prevailing wind patterns, and the location of potential emission sites throughout the valley.
As you can see on October 17th between 4 and 6 a.m., the Powhatan VOC monitor experiences highly elevated VOC readings.
So to our allies from the outside, those who are attending our presentation tonight who do not live in Belmont County or the surrounding areas, here are some actions that you can take to help us out.
When scientists and researchers have respect and trust in community leadership, they are able to produce a relevant framework for research that follows a true need for inquiry. As a team, CORE and their comrades from the scientific community were able to acknowledge the limitations of the EPA's monitoring capacity and call upon a valuable citizen science tool, the Purple Air Quality Monitor, to fill in the gaps. They were able to leverage their team's expertise to gain funding and distribute a network of these PM monitors at residences throughout the county. These people hosting monitors also became engaged or increased their level of engagement in the health advocacy movement through this data collection method. With more digging into the additional types of emissions that the petrochemical build out in Belmont County includes, CORE was able to add VOC monitors to this citizen-owned monitoring network. Joining the weekly meetings and engaging with the community science and research team on behalf of CMU Create Lab has been deeply valuable to me. We have been able to apply our publicly accessible data visualization tools like voc.createlab.org and the Environmental Sensing Data Repository. Paired with CORE citizen scientists' distributed monitoring network and a record of pollution experiences, together we were able to track VOC pollution back to its source at the compressor station at Powhatan Point in several recorded repeat pollution events. We are able to develop a narrative of VOC distribution from this source that should inform regulators about the health and safety of the communities they serve. This kind of outcome from research and the similar sustained narrative development that continues to follow is impactful on a scale far beyond publishing in academic journals. It directly affects my future and my children's future, as the Create Lab academic institution, composed of both people and tools like data visualization and monitors, stands as one of several professional support systems for these tireless on-the-ground efforts to hold industry accountable to health and environmental standards.
This scale of impact extends further, teaching scientists and researchers like myself important lessons about collaboration beyond the classroom, the lab, and campus on which I work. I'm Melissa Fries. I'm a PhD student at MIT, and I'm working as a scientist with the Thriving Earth Exchange on this project. I was brought in on the team to be a resource and scientific expert, but I can tell you that the most important role I've played is that of a listener. The historical context of Western science has made false barriers between scientists and communities whose lives are impacted by our work. As a scientist, my work is inherently political. From the funding we all receive to the power we are given as scientists. And what working with this team has taught me is that scientists, especially those in the geosciences or environmental sciences, need to listen to the communities whose lives we impact with our research and transfer that power to them. My background may be in data analysis, policy, modeling, and atmospheric chemistry. That truly doesn't matter if this isn't being used to empower communities that are historically ignored by governments, institutions, and scientists. The only way that I and others can achieve that is if we take the time to listen to what is important, to maintain transparency in our work, and to make our research accessible. We've worked as a group to maintain all of the above, taking advantage of the Create Lab's transparent modeling and monitoring to ensure that the members of CORE are the ones who are pointing us in the direction that they want to move.
Thanks so much for your time today. Please take a minute to follow our work on social media. We're at River Residents on Twitter, and here I've listed the handles of our fellow team members. We look forward to meeting you all at our live session on December 11th at 10 a.m. Eastern, where the members of our team will be available to answer questions and offer insights as part of the Science and Society session.